name is Johnny Gifford, and you're watching another edition of BCTV's Open Studio. Today I'm joined by Adriana Negron, who is part of a collaborative initiative called SYNC. They are currently conducting a needs assessment in the area to support young neurodivergent children and their caregivers. Thanks for spending some time with me here today, Adriana.
You're very welcome. Thank you for having me.
Of course. So I want to learn a lot about the work that you're doing because it's very interesting, and I know it hits close to home for you.
Yep.
So you're looking to publicize this needs assessment that you're conducting. I want to learn more about what SYNC is really. So that's an acronym, I take it?
Yeah, so it means Supporting Young Neurodiverse Children and Caregivers.
Yeah, so SYNC is a collaborative initiative between multiple different organizations in the community. So what are some of those organizations that are contributing?
So United Way of Windham County, we have Winston Prouty, Early Education Services, we have the School District Special Education, and we have the Health Department as well, the Brattleboro Health Department as well involved in the collaborative.
Feels like a pretty robust mixture of like nonprofits, which are huge in Brattleboro, and like municipal and school partners. Like that seems pretty cohesive.
Yeah. So it's been an effort of just getting the word out, getting different organizations to help in whatever ways that they can, and collaborating with us. Also, the organization that I work with, Vital Partnerships, is a part of the collaborators, and this is how I'm able to bring this all together.
So you're basically someone whose job it is to do this.
Exactly.
Which really, you need someone whose job it is to do it to get something done.
Yes. The organization that I work with, Vital Partnerships, we work with community gaps, and, we work with issues that directly impact us. So I had the opportunity to bring this to the table to our organization as it was something that I had lived experience with.
So were you sort of a driving force in getting this started?
Yes. So I had, and it was pretty easy because the organizations are really interested. We're really interested in supporting me as a parent and to be able to move this forward. And there wasn't it wasn't a hassle to get them together and to get them to create SYNC. It came together pretty naturally, I would say.
This was something that your other partners were wanting to work towards already, but did they maybe not have like a centralized way of doing so?
Yeah, I think that the organizations were aware that there was a need to centralize efforts. It just happens to be that there wasn't a concentrated effort to do it. There wasn't there wasn't like a driving organization to do it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So are there any other people or organizations that are helping out? And I mean because you're really boots on the ground making this happen. Like, are there other people in a similar capacity as to you, or are there like other maybe local individuals that are like providing donations or anything like that?
Yeah, our Early Education Services has been really involved in getting the word out there, as well as the school district, special education, reaching out to parents directly and helping get as many people to take the survey, and parents as well. We have had, the moment that I started to reach out to parents and talk to parents about the survey, they themselves have moved to get the word out and to get people participating.
Cool. So let's talk about some of the nitty-gritty, what is this actually doing? I want to know what are some of those gaps in services that exist currently for neurodivergent children and their caregivers? So
first of all, to get a diagnosis, it can be a wait of a year to 2 years. And if you don't have a diagnosis, you don't have access to a lot of services. You don't have access to Social Security. You don't have access to certain programs that are available in the area. And it's really critical to have an early diagnosis for children in order to be able to have these services available. The other thing that I've noticed and that is coming through is that not just in Brattleboro, but in talking with and in Windham County, really, but talking to other counties as well in the state, there is a lack of services and therapeutical services. Like some parents only have access to speech therapy once a week, or if it's not once a week, maybe every 2 weeks. Which, you know, for children who are on the autism spectrum, they need consistent and constant therapy early on to see good results.
Yeah, I mean, the healthcare industry and many other service industries, I think, since COVID and even beforehand, I've just been experiencing a lot of turnover, a lot of delays in service and their ability to serve, and that, you know, you're at a critical mass where it's just not, the system is not serving the people who need it the most. Yeah. So this is great that I think you and these other organizations are looking to make change in that way. And, you know, it affects every one of us, but it affects, you know, some of us disproportionately. Yeah, and children with autism are, you know, and with the developmental disabilities are very vulnerable. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I feel like, you know, and usually families are so occupied with just working with the children at home, you know, just the caretaking, that it's hard to have to advocate because you're so focused on the caregiving, if that makes sense. Yeah, no, that does totally make sense. You're a caregiver and an advocate, and that's a lot of hats to wear. That is a lot. Yeah. So what is some of this data that you're collecting? What kinds of data are you soliciting from folks? So we want to understand where family feel the gaps are. We want to understand, you know, where do they feel that services are falling through? If they feel that services are falling through, we want to understand, you know, how families are doing in terms of, you know, how the isolation. You know, we're trying to understand how families are doing emotionally. We're trying to understand how having a child on the autism spectrum has impacted them personally, and we are trying to create systems to be able to support families in these ways. And how are you collecting this data? So we have a survey on an online survey. It's a Google form, and it's really easy to fill out, and that's how we're doing it. Yeah, I mean, keep it easy, you know, accessible. We got a QR code that may or may not work on your screen, but it's also, you know, I'm sure people can just like look it up online. Exactly. And if people don't have access to the internet, we also have the ability to, we have a printed version of the survey as well. Cool. Where do people access that printed version? They can reach out to me at adriana@vitalpartnerships.org. And I'm able to send a copy of the printed version, or They can call me at my phone number 802-416-1563, and I'm able to meet with them and personally give them the copy if internet access is the issue. Yeah, that's great because you really just got to be meeting people where they're at. Yes, for sure, and everyone's in a different place, and especially, you know. Just this week, we had a mass internet outage in town, so we have to have these backup plans. Yes, we do. Yeah. So how else can individuals and families who want to contribute get involved? Are there other ways besides filling out a survey? Well, our plan, so let me talk to you a little bit about our long-term plan. Sure. We're trying to, this needs assessments is a gateway to getting a peer-to-peer support system for families, so that families can first of all, get to know each other, create connections, are able to have a place and to be able to speak about their concerns openly with people who understand, who've experienced, who are living through the same things that they are. And in that way,
that's how families can get involved in a way. It's by participating in what we're trying to create. And also we're going to be having, oh my goodness. I'm sorry, my Spanish is getting on my English and my English is getting on my Spanish. Okay. It happens sometimes. It's not an interview, but focus groups. Gotcha. We're going to be having focus groups. And families can, if they're interested, they can participate in our focus groups so that we can get a little bit more intimate and more direct information of what the needs are and where the gaps are, where they feel the gaps are.
Yeah, so you have a really good range of ways to get involved, from, filling out a survey that's expressing their concerns, their needs, to, really being in the room with decision makers.
Yes.
That's sort of a great broad range to be offering to people you want to serve.
And we want to hear from families, especially right now. One of the questions that we're asking is, we want to have this peer-to-peer support groups, and we're hoping to have educational sessions as well. So we're hoping to have that as a resource for families. And what we need to understand is what are the things that parents are struggling with at home, and what would they like a professional to come in and teach and talk about, to make it easier. One of the things that we've already heard a lot about in our survey is potty training. A lot of parents are struggling to potty train their children. A lot of parents are struggling to introduce new foods to their children. These are things that seem very simple, but when you have children on the autism spectrum, they can be pretty big challenges.
Yeah, they're, it's requires unique problem solving, or just, letting kids be how they are, but, you have to sort of adapt your lifestyle to that.
It's a lot of that.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So I want to learn a little bit more about you, your role in this work, and just I want to hear a little bit about your story. So what is your story as it relates to this work, and what impact could all of this have in your life?
So I am the mother of a child on the autism spectrum. His name is Mateo. He's going to be turning 5 here very soon. I'm very excited. It all started to unravel when my family moved to Vermont. We were living in Puerto Rico and during COVID, and we decided that we needed to move, and we found Vermont, and our search, we bumped into Brattleboro and we loved it. And so we decided to just put all our eggs in one basket and come here. And as we decided as we were getting settled in, my son had a huge regression. And he started losing a lot of his skills. He became nonverbal. He lost the ability to make eye contact. He stopped answering to his name, and it was kind of it was a very difficult thing to experience, because you feel as though your child is disappearing in front of you, and it was a really scary moment for me. At first, I didn't know, if there was an issue with him being able to hear, because when I would call out to him, he would no longer answer. So I was scared, that maybe something happened with his hearing. But as I had experience taking care of children on the autism spectrum, it started to become more and more obvious that it looked a lot like autism. And I had this feeling, tugging at me that it was autism. And so at the time, we went to our primary care, the primary care office, and we tried to get a referral. And we did not get a referral for him. And we were kind of brushed off, everything's okay. We're during COVID. Some children are having developmental delays. It was kind of a complete brush off. And that didn't feel right. I knew that there was something going on, And I decided to make calls and reach out to the people. There were organizations helping already our family because I was pregnant at the time with my youngest, and I was able to connect with someone who told me to reach out directly to Winston Prouty, and I did. And Winston Prouty was at my home within a week of me calling. And I expressed to them the concerns. I said, he's not answering to his name anymore. He's not speaking. He's not making any eye contact. And they, in a matter of no time, they were there and evaluating him. At the time, the person who was there seeing him was Mary Coogan. She's recently retired. Well, she's great. And she sat down with Mateo in our living room, and she started interacting with him and working with him. And they started to kind of prepare us little by little, our family, for a potential diagnosis of autism. And they started moving and doing everything to get Mateo a diagnosis or evaluate it, really. But it took a very long time because there wasn't any at the time. There wasn't anyone conducting the evaluations in the state. And so we were dependent on Dartmouth. We had to, Dartmouth in New Hampshire.
Right.
And that was a 2-year waiting list.
Wow.
For a diagnosis.
Just for a diagnosis?
Just for a diagnosis. And, Winston Prouty was we're really adamant on trying to find a different source to get him a diagnosis. Just as we were waiting for Dartmouth to see him, the UVM started also doing diagnostics, which I'm not sure if they're any longer doing it or not, because it's been an on and off kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And so Mateo, probably a year in, when he was about to turn 3 years old, just a couple of days before he turned 3, he received his diagnosis of autism. And then it was a search for to place him in a program. And there is one program here in Brattleboro. It's called the Bell Center, that provides ABA therapy for children, but you have to have a diagnosis. And a lot of families, like I said before, they don't have a diagnosis because of the long waiting lists to get one. And they started to see Mateo. Mateo started to receive services with them, but
do they only serve children who do have a diagnosis?
Exactly. Yeah. They have to have a diagnosis. And so Mateo started seeing them, and he's still to this day seeing them. And he's had leaps and bounds with them, and he's doing really well. But in terms of speech therapy and other sorts of therapies that a child on the autism spectrum needs, we've had to reach out of state in order to find those services. We drive 30 minutes twice a week to get him speech therapy down in Keene. And we're a family with we're a family of 4 children, and the after work, getting in the car, getting everybody in there, going to the therapy, then coming home and making it. It's hard. Yeah. It's hard. But there isn't a lot of services here, and that is another complaint and kind of issue that I've seen a lot of families that have children on the spectrum that say, yeah, it's long drives, to be able to get services to my child. Yeah, it's as a parent, you do the impossible for your children, and you try to look for resources, and you try to help them and advocate for them in whatever way you possible, but it shouldn't be this difficult for families. There should be more available for families. There should be, families shouldn't be driving out of state. Families shouldn't be waiting 1 to 2 years to get a diagnosis. Families shouldn't be receiving, every other week speech therapy. Like, families in the state of Vermont deserve a lot better than this. And not just families, the children. We're talking about, children who are very vulnerable. The earlier the intervention, the earlier the services, the better the outcomes. And that's not me saying that. That's like the research and the science behind it. But it's Vermont, surprisingly, is not moving adequately, and it's not doing enough for these families and these children, and it comes to a shocking surprise to me to learn this. So that's a little bit about, my story and my feelings about what's going on in the state.
Yeah, I mean, being in a rural area, there's totally a disconnect there with resources being put toward everything that needs to be addressed, and that creates a lapse and delay in services. Even though the technology, the medical research, it's all there.
Yeah. We
just don't have the people or the resources to be putting toward it. Which, I mean, we do have those things. We just our state government or whoever it is just not moving at the right pace for it, because it's sort of not a skeleton crew, but they really only do so much, like in the course of their legislative work. And
this is something, and these are kind of like in that same, we're in a rural area, there's limited access to services. That's how gaps are created and justified, and kind of like, moved through, in a sense. Like, this is how all of a sudden you justify not having services for a group of children. It's
yeah, and I try not to say it as a justification, more so as a problem that exists. And then so you're really trying to spearhead a solution locally.
Yes.
Which I think is great.
Yes.
So could you tell me a little bit more about how you started with this work? Sort of, with the specific, the needs assessment and sync, but you also, you work for Vital Partnerships. So you kind of have a vested interest in sort of broadly speaking, the work. So how did you get involved with that?
So like I said, the organization that I work with, we are really about working with issues that directly impact us, right? And I brought this to the ED of our organization, which you are too, and I was like, this is something that I'm living through right now, and we need to do something. In talking with organizations like Winston Prouty, in talking with the education department, the special education, they understood instantly, immediately, that the efforts that I was trying to put into place were very justified, and so it was It was a lot of phone calls. It was a lot of phone calls and talking to some really amazing people, and connecting with various key people in the different organizations, I felt supported pretty quickly, I have to say. It sounds more complicated than what it is, but it honestly took a phone call and an invitation to participate in this initiative.
Yeah, and now you've built a whole network of people. You've built relationships, and so problems that arise, there is a network to deal with those problems. I think on a larger scale, and maybe even on an individual scale too. Like you mentioned earlier, people in this community are kind and want to help each other out.
Yes.
And so you're just like, I feel like you're building the links between the people and the services, and then it's a matter of building that up.
Yeah.
I think the actual ability to serve.
Yeah. Like I said, organizations here are concerned about this population. We're specifically working with children on the autism spectrum from like 0 through 5.
Yeah.
And there's, this age, it's like the most vulnerable time for, and in the time when you're getting a diagnosis, the time where some parents are starting to notice some of the signs. And so it was very, easy to get organizations to jump on board. I feel, and yeah, we've been doing this work for over a year now. We've been at it, and we recently came up with a consensus with a name. It took us a little bit of time to get there.
Name and branding though is like huge.
Exactly. Yeah. So it just took us a minute,
yeah.
But we, I'm very happy with the team, and I feel like we're ready to put resources where there are gaps.
That's great. So once this needs assessment is conducted, you mentioned some of your other goals, but what's the next thing that happens once you feel like you have ample response?
So once we have the needs assessment, once we have the focus groups, then we're going to be working on creating the program. There's a peer-to-peer support program, creating the educational sessions for parents to be able to come in and receive the education on the various topics that they selected that they feel that they need information in, and also creating an advocacy group. Part of being able to tackle the gaps that we see and tackle the issues and the problems that we see is gonna come from getting parents together, creating an advocacy group, and getting people to push legislation and to push for the changes that we need to see in our community.
And I'm sure it's even on like a direct support case basis as well, the advocacy group.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's ranging from being in the state house to working with a family.
Exactly. So we're trying to build a robust support system for our families, and we're trying to and also giving the structure for families to support each other and support this initiative as well. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Could you just reiterate once again, like how folks can get involved by contributing to this needs assessment, the different ways they can access it and reach out?
Yeah, so they can go to the online form and fill out the survey. They can reach out to me via email if they're having any problems accessing it, and my email is adriana@vitalpartnerships.org, or they can reach directly to me by phone at 802-416-1563.
Great. Well, yeah, you've set up a good good network there for people to get involved, and I hope that you get a really good response out of it, and you can build these relationships with organizations and people.
Yeah, I am fingers crossed. We're really excited about doing the work that we're doing, and most importantly, we're excited about the impact that that sync is going to have on families and being able to support a group of children who are often, left in the shadows.
Yeah. We're going to take that really positive energy that we experience here in Brattleboro and, really organize and formalize it, I think, for these people.
We're in the right place for it.
Yeah, we sure are. Well, is there anything else you want to add?
No, I think, yeah.
Yeah, great. I feel like we covered it all pretty well. I want to thank you a lot for being willing to come on here and tell me about just this work and these incredible partnerships you're making, but also like really being personal and just sharing your story with me, because it's very moving.
Yeah. I just, if you said, I said I didn't want to add anything, but, now I'm like moved to, having when you're in the process of receiving a diagnosis, there's a lot of uncertainty. Some parents approach it with curiosity. Some parents are scared. In my experience, I was scared. I was scared for my child's future. I was scared for, we're not eternal. I often felt like, what if my child needs me forever? What structures are there in place to support my child when I'm not there, to support him? It can be a very emotional, and an isolating experience. But, what we're trying to do is to make it less isolating, to tell families, like, you have other people around you that completely and fully understand what you're going through. And there are supports and resources in our, and we're creating, also support and resources as well as we speak, to support, families and their children. So yeah, this is deeply personal to me, and this is all for Mateo.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I wish you the best of luck with all this work, and I just thank you again for having a chat with me today.
Yeah, thank you.
And thank you for watching another episode of BCTV's Open Studio. Again, you can get involved with this needs assessment if you feel like the shoe is the right fit, by accessing the form online or by contacting Adriana over email or phone. Thanks for being here with us.